Hey, how's it going? I'm doing all right. Yeah. We're going to talk about Gatsby Chapter Niner today. I will be back from the U tomorrow, and we will be starting to talk papers. Unfortunately, I do not have computer access for those work days because the MCA testing is taking up every last computer that is available. So you will have to go back to ye old-fashioned times. Pencil is appropriate. Stone tablet. Um, you could write it on your arm. Um, uh, yeah. So you got options. This is what I'm saying. Options. Anyway, let's talk chapter 9. So after Gatsby was killed, take a look at page 164. And if you look at who's kind of cleaning up after the mess of Gatsby's death, it's Nick, right? Which is pretty sad because I wouldn't say that Nick and Gatsby are like super best buds, right? Um, but he's as close to a friend as Gatsby has. And, it's going to kind of address this at the end, but this is the problem with having such a big dream and putting everything into one big dream. That if that dream does not come true, you're not left with much of anything, right? So people keep calling up for him. Go to page 166. He hears from Meyer Wolfsheim. Meyer Wolfsheim, I think, due to the fact that Gatsby was killed, he doesn't want anything to do with that. He doesn't get mixed up. I cannot come down as I'm tied up in this very important business and cannot get mixed up in this thing right now. So he doesn't want anything to do with that. And then Nick receives a phone call, which is from someone that it should make him dislike Gatsby even more. On 166, when the phone rang that afternoon, long distance at Chicago was calling. I thought this would be Daisy at last, but the connection was from a man's voice, but very thin and far away. This is Slagle speaking. Yes? Name was unfamiliar. Hell of a note, isn't it? Get my wire? There haven't been any wires. Young Park's in trouble, he said rapidly. They picked him up when he handed the bonds over the counter. They got the circular from New York, giving them the numbers just 5 minutes before. Now, if you remember back what Nick's job was, he went to learn the bond business. And one of Gatsby's little side gigs where he's making all this money is by selling illegal bonds. And again, Gatsby represents everything for which Nick has unaffected scorn, including things like that, cheating and lying at what Nick's trying to do honestly. But due to devotion to Daisy, due to devotion to Dream, due to all of those things, the hope and belief and all that stuff, he ends up okay. Gatsby's father shows up, and he is a kind of sad gentleman. And he doesn't really know his son, right? His son left when he was a kid, left when he was quite young. And all he knows is that his son has been very, very successful, but he just doesn't know how yet. Going on, talks to Klipspringer on the phone, and Klipspringer, the guy who lived at Gatsby's house, and Nick was excited to talk to him because he thought maybe this guy at least would want to go to the funeral. And he said, what I called up for was about a pair of shoes I left there. I was wondering if it would be too much trouble to have the butler send them on. They're my tennis shoes, and I'm sort of helpless without them. My address is care of BF, and I didn't hear the rest because I'd hung up. After that, I felt a certain shame for Gatsby. One gentleman to whom I telephoned implied that he got what he deserved. However, that was my fault, for he was one of those who used to sneer most bitterly at Gatsby on the courage of Gatsby's liquor, and I should have known better than to call him. He goes and talks to Meyer Wolfsheim on the bottom of 170. And it says, my memory goes back to when I first met him, he said. So we're going all the way back to the beginning of Gatsby's life. A young major just out of the army and covered up over with medals he got in the war. He was so hard up he had to keep wearing his uniform because he couldn't buy some regular clothes. The first time I saw him was when I came into the Weinbrenner's pool room on 43rd Street and asked for a job. He hadn't eaten anything for a couple days. Come have some lunch with me, I said. He ate more than $4 worth of food in about a half an hour. Did you start him in business? Start him? I made him. Oh, I raised him right up out of the gutter. Raised him right up out of nothing, right out of the gutter. I saw right away he was a fine-appearing, gentlemanly young man, and when he told me he was in Oxford, I knew I could use him good. We were like thick like that and everything. He held up two bulbous fingers, always like that. I wondered if this partnership included the World Series transaction. Now, if you're writing about American Dream, why Book Challenge's idea of American Dream, this information is useful too, because when Gatsby turned to Wolfsheim after attempting to do this the right way, and we're even going to get a little more information at the end of the book about how much of the right way he wanted to do it, that he had nothing. and Wolfsheim took him from the guy who couldn't even afford a new pair of clothes to the guy living in the house with the car and the parties and all that stuff in just 3 years. So Gatsby met a pretty good dude, or bad dude, regardless. Going on, he talks about not getting mixed up when people are killed. Go to 172, 173. This is exactly how much he wanted to do it the right way. Gatsby's dad shows Nick a book from when Gatsby was a kid. Pulled from his pocket a ragged copy of a book called Hopalong Cassidy. Now, Hopalong Cassidy, I should have had this up, but Hopalong Cassidy is a kid's book character, and so this was a book from when Gatsby was a kid. And in it, he wrote this schedule for self-improvement, right? And from the time he's a little kid, so this goes back to 1906, from 6 in the morning till 9 at night, he had a plan to develop himself into attaining moral perfection. He wanted to be the perfect person that he could be. And I'm sorry about this. Anyway, Hopalong Cassidy is known for his honor and loyalty and good deeds, and also he's a very devoted family man. And you can see that this is the type of person, clearly the fact that he read this book, I think we can draw the conclusion that he was influenced by the character. And to go from someone who fights crime and is very honest and trustworthy and good family man to working with Wolfsheim and trying to break people's families apart, Gatsby moved a lot in that direction. But the fact that from the time he was a little kid, he was setting out a daily schedule to improve himself. Most kids don't do that, right? And so this shows this, and then in conjunction with things like when Gatsby went to St. Olaf and he had to try to pay his ways through as being custodian. That and this show that from the time he was a real little kid, he really wanted to achieve the American dream the right way. And so if you're writing about how the book critiques the American dream, it's important to bring some of that stuff in the beginning of your argument to really set up that he did want to do it the right way, so that when you bring Wolfsheim into the conversation in your book, that point is as strong as it can be. Like, you really need to set him up as someone who wanted to do this the right way so that it makes sense when you're bringing up Wolfsheim, and that in the point of your argument and the point of the book, you understand why that's such a big deal and why that's such a big switch from what he originally wanted to do. Going on, then we go to the funeral, which is about as depressing a funeral as you can get. We had the minister, we had Gatsby's dad, and we had Nick, and the owl-eyed man. It was the man with owl-eyed glasses who I had found marveling over Gatsby's books in the library one night 3 months before. This was on 174. I'd never seen him since. I don't know how he knew about the funeral, or even his name. The rain poured down his thick glasses, and he took them off and wiped them to see the protecting canvas unrolled from Gatsby's grave. Now pay attention to when he's cleaning his glasses, because we've already known that this guy, A, is referred to as Owl Eyes, and owls have mythological significance in terms of wisdom and being related to Athena. And so, and the fact that he also is known by his eyes means he has good vision, right? So when he's wiping his glasses off, that means he's seeing things more clearly and is going to say something fairly astute. Dimly I heard someone murmur, "Blessed are the dead that the rain falls on," and the owl-eyed man said, "Amen to that," in a brave voice. We straggled down quickly through the rain to the cars. Owl Eyes spoke to me by the gate. I couldn't get to his house, remarked. You look at anybody else. Go on, he started. My God, they used to go there by the hundreds. He took off his glasses and wiped them again, outside and in. The poor son of a bitch, he said. And if you're looking for a eulogy, like what you would say, deliver a speech you would deliver at someone's funeral, I think that's about it. Sums it up for Gatsby as well as anybody. And if you wanted to be a little bit more dark about it, I guess, that could be a eulogy for the American dream. If you believe you can do that, poor guy. And you look at what he did, how he lived his life, poor guy. And I'm paraphrasing to make it a bit more appropriate, but that's about the best you could say about him, which is a sad statement. Going on, then Nick goes back home, and on 177 he finishes thing up with Jordan, and we return back to that bad driving conversation. It said, when I finished, it told me she was engaged. I doubted that, though there were several she could have married at the nod of her head, but I pretended to be surprised. For just a moment, I wondered if I wasn't making a mistake. Then I thought it all over again and got up to say goodbye. Nevertheless, you did throw me over, said Jordan suddenly. You threw me over on the telephone. I don't give a damn about you now, but it was a new experience for me. I felt a little dizzy afterwards. Of all the characters in the book, all the characters have some degree of dreams, right? And Jordan is the smallest. there was a quote in there about she was too wise to carry dreams from age to age. She doesn't dream much, right? And she ends up arguably the most successful person. The only real dreaming she did, it sounds like, is she did start to develop some feelings and attraction for Nick. And so when he broke up with her, and that's, again, a pretty modest dream, that she felt a little dizzy, right? In comparison to Gatsby, who had big dreams and ended up in a bad spot. Myrtle had big dreams, ended up in a bad spot. Wilson had big dreams, ended up in a bad spot. All these characters, but some of them didn't. And so looking at and tracing the dreams of these characters, what they hope to accomplish and where they end up, you can draw some conclusions about the point author's making by including those stories. And then, going on, it said, oh, you remember she said a conversation we once had about driving a car? Why, not exactly. You said a bad driver was only safe until she met another bad driver. I mean, it was careless of me. Well, I met another bad driver, didn't I? I mean, it was careless of me to make such a wrong guess. I thought you were a rather honest, straightforward person. I thought it was your secret pride. I've had people write a paper about that, too. Is Nick a bad driver? Is Nick a careless driver, too? Is he just expecting everyone else to get out of his way? And I'm not sure I buy it. He definitely seems less careless than the other characters, but I think he could fit with that group, too. Excuse me. Going on. Then, 178, 179, Nick meets up with Tom, and then there was nothing I could say except for the one unutterable fact that it wasn't true. And Tom had just said, he threw dust into your eyes just like he did in Daisy's. But he was a tough one. He ran over Myrtle like he'd run over a dog and never even stopped his car. There was nothing I could say except the one unutterable fact that it wasn't true. And if you think I didn't have my share of suffering, look, when I went to give up the flat and saw that damn box of dog biscuits sitting there on the sideboard, I sat down and cried like a baby. By God, it was awful. This is the most Tom has suffered for this, right? It's still not big a deal to him. And we still don't know what happened to the puppy. That's the last reference to the puppy, but I guess it's mentioned one other time, but didn't do well. And here's a good quote for paper purposes. I couldn't forgive him or like him, but I saw what he had done to him was entirely justified. It was all very careless and confused. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess they made. And that really sums up a lot of this carelessness stuff in the book, right? Going on, then go to the last page, and this is my favorite last page of any book. I think the writing on this end is some of the best I've ever read. Most of the big houses, and so what Nick is happening at the end of this is Nick is standing out on the shore, kind of looking out across the bay at Daisy's house, and imagining what this place used to be like when the first European settlers arrived. Most of the big shore places were closed now, and there were hardly any lights except in the shadowy, moving glow of the ferry boat across the sound. As the moon rose higher, the inessential houses began to melt away until gradually I became aware of the old island here as it flowered once for the Dutch sailor's eyes, the fresh green breast of the New World. Okay, so what he's doing is he's looking at this space that they're in, Long Island, where all these fancy houses are, back when the first original settler went there, right? And when it talks about the fresh green breast of the New World, you can link that to the green light, right? I think it was intentionally described that way. And so green light can be rolled in and described in argument purposes by linking that to the American dream, and you can use this quote to do it. Anyway, its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory, enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired. Face to face for the last time in history was something commensurate to his capacity for wonder. What he's saying there is that that was the last time in history when people looked at something that was as big as their dreams and as big as their hope. Because of all the possibilities, right? Economic possibilities, resources, religious freedom and possibilities. All these things, here was a space where you could be whatever you wanted to be and become whatever you wanted to be. Now, he's going to compare the feeling of those Dutch settlers looking at the opportunity and I guess just opportunity of this place, and then comparing it to Gatsby looking across the same bay, except now we got the green light and we got all the fancy houses there. And as I sat there brooding on the old unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the night. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow, we'll run faster, stretch out our arms farther in one fine morning, and so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Every morning, Wilson gets up, right, and he thinks, maybe if I can just get that one car, Maybe if Tom sells me that one car, today's going to be the day that I can make it. I can start to get some money rolling in. I can start to make some improvements on this place and fix it up and start to make a better living. And then it doesn't happen. And then he wakes up the next day and says, maybe today's the day. If I can just work a little bit harder, if I can just do a little bit better, maybe today will be the day I'll make it. And then he doesn't, right? And this happens over and over and over. And so, and for Gatsby too, every morning he would wake up and think, today's the day I can get Daisy. Or if I can just make a little money, more money, if I can have a little nicer car, if I can throw a little bigger party, if I can have a couple more nicer shirts, just a little bit more, I'll get there today. And then we don't. Over and over and over. And so as a description of American Dream, it's a pretty depressing one, that this is the process, that it's like rowing against the current. And so if you've ever like canoed on a river or something, going against the current, you gotta paddle like crazy to go against the current. It's a lot harder, and then as soon as you stop, you drift right back to where you were. Just like with Wilson, he works real hard, doesn't get anywhere, and he's back where he started every morning. He works real hard, doesn't get anywhere, and he's back where he started every morning. So I think that sums up a lot of the ideas in the book really well. And as I said, that's the best writing in any ending that I've read in a book. It's just perfect. So tomorrow we're going to start talking paper, and we'll have a couple days of work, probably Monday through Wednesday, maybe next week. Depending on if people are working, I'm happy to give you time to work, and if you're not, then we'll go on to the next topic. So, bye.